At the beginning of the story, it is explained that the alliance of kingdoms from the east will be destroyed 10 years from now by the 5 great sins. A truly horrific destruction. To stop it, I became their sponsor. It is explained here, I never expected it would turn into something this massive. I used to be a corporate slave working 78 hours a week, and now I have possessed a nobleman in a fantasy world. Sounds like a good thing, right? Well, that's how it looks. There he is, reading a book, but unable to understand it. Usually, when someone undergoes an ice-sky reincarnation, the local language is translated automatically, right? But with the added background of being illiterate and having 0 abilities, he still receives luxurious treatment from his servants. Young master, it's time for dinner. There really is a ton of delicious food there. This is absolutely delectable. The servant says, you have finished eating. I will prepare the bath before you sleep. He takes a bath accompanied by girls, guys. A young master who can't do anything, just eating and lazing around every single day. This place is already like paradise, except for one thing. I don't know where this place actually is. One of the servants says, tomorrow, the other young masters will return. So, please make sure you go to sleep early. He looks utterly confused. The other young masters? What do you mean by that? The servant answers, why, young master Leo and young master Tonio, of course. You must be joking. It's as if you don't even know Count Palatio's family. He is shocked to hear that name, and it sounds incredibly familiar to his ears. Completely stunned, he immediately submerges his face into the water and thinks, don't tell me this is Sidelia. That was an RPG game he used to play frequently in his spare time back when he was still a corporate slave. No matter which route you start from, the moment the 5 great sins appear, among them being wrath, greed, sloth, pride, and purity, that is when the noble kingdoms and the cities within them begin to collapse. Among them is the family of Count Palatio. The first son is named Leo. He is often called the king of vice. The second son is named Tonio, frequently referred to as the king of drugs, a drug lord. This is an immoral noble family that appears as a subquest before the main story begins. I definitely know this place. A quest can be seen right there. Investigate Count Palatio's family of the Asteria Kingdom. Seriously, of all the places out there, why did it have to be the Palatio family, the very first place to be destroyed by the 5 great sins? But the EXP reward from the mission is pretty good. And I became an extra villain, the third son of Count Palatio, named alone Palatio. He looks completely baffled by the situation that has unfolded. He wishes, I'd rather go back to being a corporate slave, working 78 hours a week. Just send me back already. What kind of luxury life is this if I'm going to die in the next 10 years? This feels worse than getting news that my salary is being frozen for 6 months. If it's an ice guy like this, why did I end up as a character with absolutely no advantages? While the transmigrators and stories get all sorts of bonuses, he suddenly realizes something. But wait, I know many of the events that will happen 10 years from now. That's the same as knowing the future, which means I just need to eliminate the cause of the destruction early on. And that is how I decided to reform the 5 great sins for the sake of my peaceful noble life. They are still children right now, right? That means this should be doable, even though I have no abilities whatsoever. And so 2 months passed. A subordinate named Evan reports to Alone. He is Alone's personal knight. Evan says, I have rescued the orphans from the place that used to be an orphanage. No. It was actually a human experimentation laboratory. Among them, I have entrusted the management of the new orphanage to a girl named Yusha. Alone replies, it seems my instincts were correct. You are indeed a capable man. Evan wonders if that was a compliment. I couldn't tell from your facial expression, young master, as Alone shows a look of despair, guys. Alone says, from now on, I will be relying on you heavily, Evan. However, Evan is still not used to that smile. Alone thinks to himself, even though there used to be a feature for expressions like that, for some reason, it feels like the skin on my face didn't transfer properly when entering the character. Evan says, at any rate, thank you for the compliment, young master. In Sidelia, a game where betrayal is a built-in feature, Evan is one of the rare supporting characters who possesses high loyalty and can be trusted. I recruited him the moment he was found. Evan says, but you said this latest raid was done for the sake of saving a girl named Yusha, right? Now I understand why you singled her out. Even to a seasonal mercenary like me, that girl is extraordinary. Alone thinks, I don't understand why someone as strong as him allowed himself to be imprisoned so easily. Evan asks, then, why didn't you bring her here? Wouldn't that be a loss for us? Alone answers, good observation. He thinks to himself, it might look like I'm wasting her potential, but leaving her behind is also part of the plan. Yusha Bloodia, a bloodborne creature who made a contract with a mysterious entity from another world, later becomes one of the 5 great sins known as wrath, a monster that will cause the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives. But if she grows up without resentment, she won't cause chaos. One landmine has been successfully defused. I just need to make up a slight excuse as to why we left her behind. Alone says to Evan, Evan, now is not the right time. Evan is surprised and wonders what he means. But Alone says, all right, keep this raid a strict secret and make sure she receives proper support. And Evan understands. Alone orders him to deliver a letter to Yusha. Evan asks if there's something important inside. Alone answers, it's a letter of greeting. After all the horrific experiments they performed on her, I think this letter might comfort her a little. Evan says, you even went through the trouble of writing a letter for her. I will make sure this letter reaches her. And he leaves the place. Alone thinks, while I'm not sure if comforting is the right word, this is still worth a try. Hidden inside that friendly greeting letter is a message I've heard dozens of times across hundreds of playthroughs, a spell that allows the user to interconnect with a bloodborne. The spell is supposed to provide a calming effect. The suffering of darkness, the void of light, talent, and the sense of belonging to someone merge into one. This is a line that appears in the storyline of Wrath. It's a piece of dialogue, guys. In the game, this failure is what forces us to fight her. But since this setting takes place 10 years before those events, there might still be time. One of the 5 flags of destruction has been cleared. I suppose it's time to handle the next one. Befriending a monster with just a single sentence does sound ridiculous, but they're a race that worships some kind of otherworldly entity, so this might just work. Those who dwell in the realm of fanaticism have minds that are hard to predict. As Yusha reads the letter, Evan thinks, even the fragments that remain make no sense. But this child, there is something terrifying about how dead her emotions are. Yusha says, the sender of this letter, you said his name is Master Alone, right? Why didn't he just summon me directly to meet him? She displays a massive amount of mana, guys. Evan thinks, what on earth is this? Her mana is physically manifesting, but something like this can only be done by masters. He looks genuinely terrified and finds it hard to answer. However, he recalls Alone's words about now not being the right time. He finally answers, that's right. Now is not the right time to meet. And Yusha immediately understands. She looks truly delighted to receive the letter and says, this vow is only known by the master himself. I think I understand what he means. She is incredibly happy with the contents of the letter. Meanwhile, Alone is shown reflecting. Another satisfying day of trying to extend my luxurious life. The blue moon feels as if it's cheering me on. I must work hard for the next sins as well. And he finally falls asleep. Later, he is seen searching for a book, and the books fall on his head. He is searching for something that turns out not to be here. Finding clues regarding the third boss is giving me a headache. Evan arrives and says, young master, we have rescued the second child you mentioned. Alone responds, really? Did you also make sure that the child is being treated very well? He answers, of course, after rescuing the child from the illegal slave market. Before he can finish speaking, Tonio suddenly arrives, smashing through the door. He says, so you're here alone. Why is an illiterate person like you holding a book? I heard you've been busy studying lately. Hey, answer your brother's question. Alone thinks he is so annoying. How did the original Alone put up with him? I want to punch him, but I'd probably lose. Alone says, it looks like you want to use the library, so I'll take my leave. He immediately ducks down, and suddenly, something lands right in front of Tonio. The object barely misses him. It turns out to be a knife embedded there, thrown by their eldest brother. He says, you insect are being too noisy. I don't want to see blood in the morning, so get out. Their eldest brother, Leo, looks incredibly strong, guys. Leo and Tonio start arguing. Tonio said, I suggest you don't act tough while entering the library. Leo replied, you piece of drug-reeking trash. Run while you still can. They threatened each other. However, Alone didn't seem to care and just wanted to escape. The Palacios disappeared quickly in the game, but their strength is greater than I expected. In short, these two brothers of mine are fighting over the position of family head. Leo is a major figure in the underworld, the king of prostitution, while Tonio is the manager of a large-scale cartel, a drug lord. I can't mess with either of them. The two of them are seen bickering, guys. And Alone left the place. He thought, I will gladly live as a weak and incompetent, illegitimate child. Back in his room, Evan said, but it seems that second child is no ordinary person either. Evan thought to himself, how could someone like him manage to locate an illegal slave market and biological experiments happening in another territory? How could he possibly find them? He seems to be having trouble focusing right now. Alone looks completely exhausted. Young master, you are very strange. You sent that child to the orphanage. Alone thought to himself, did he just say that child doesn't seem ordinary? He isn't just not ordinary. In fact, that child is on a completely different scale. Within the Allied Kingdom, consisting of several nations, the central nation is the Callian Kingdom. And the child we just rescued from the illegal slave market is the second boss of Cydelia, named Deus Michaelian. After being sold as a slave and tortured every time he was moved around, he became the embodiment of the 5 deadly sins, the sin of sloth. He then destroyed the kingdoms using the most horrific methods imaginable. This part of the story left many players speechless at the sheer brutality of his actions. Paradoxically to the sin of sloth, he is recognized as a hardworking individual who pays back both debts and grievances several times over. That is why I told Evan to treat Deus exceptionally well. He reflects on how terrifying that sequence was. Alone says, the reason why I sent him to the orphanage now is not the time. Evan replies, just as I thought. So, is the content of the letter you sent to Yusha about that second child? A letter sent to Yusha can be seen there. He asks how she is doing and shares a little update with her. Alone also tells Yusha to reply to the letter, sending some small talk as well. Alone says, I told her to take care of the sickly child I sent her, and that is Deus. Yusha is seen approaching him and saying, you are broken. The culprit wasn't the black goat, but the great moon still chose you. Congratulations. So, feel this power that has been granted to you and show your potential. If you are loyal and follow his orders, your revenge will surely be exacted. She's seen doing something to him, guys. All right, now I should send my first reply letter with a warm greeting. The next day, as Alone is reading in the library, Evan suddenly arrives. Alone wonders where exactly the third boss is. Evan delivers urgent news. The second young master is dead. Alone is completely shocked and wonders, how is this possible so soon? A funeral ceremony attended by a few people can be seen there. However, they don't seem to care at all, guys. Alone thinks, even at his own son's funeral, he still brings drugs and women. I knew this family was messed up, but goodness, this really is a dark fantasy genre. By the way, Tonio suddenly died from an accidental fall. This is different from what I remember in the game. In the game, it was previously shown that Leo said, I finally managed to kill that cockroach after years of trying. Now I'm the rightful successor. Now I'm Count Palacio. He cried and wailed, talking about how he finally managed to eliminate him after all this time. And his face at that moment looked so happy on the far side. At least try to act a little. The culprit is definitely Leo or his followers. Well, whatever. Now I just need to find the other 5 deadly sins. And 1 year passed. Once the succession issue was settled and Leo absorbed the drug business, Count Palacio became even more peaceful. Meanwhile, Yusha and I have become pen pals. If I keep in touch with her, I'll definitely be set for the future. He is seen reading a letter. Yuna is good at playing hide and seek. Haydn is good at playing war games. Deus continues to grow without any issues, and he likes playing as a puppet master. Alone thinks that looking at them now, they all seem like good children. However, the list is seen growing again. How interesting. More and more sponsors are appearing for that small orphanage. Evan says, even though it's strange, this is still a good thing. Oh right, regarding what you were looking for, I obtained information from the guild stating that they have found a clue. Alone replies, really? That's great news. Alone thinks the clue must be the book regarding the third boss. Finally, I can find that boss too. Everything is going smoothly. This is truly a peaceful afternoon. However, the scene shifts to show a massacre at a drug distribution site, namely Margot. A bald man says, "The eldest son of the Palacio family is quite generous. He always provides large wages." The man next to him says, "Our organization has several hundred members. Just a little more." The people they're seen losing control of their own bodies and harming themselves. The same goes for the bald man there. They plunge knives into their own necks. In the darkness, a young boy wearing a cloak can be seen. It turns out to be Deus, and Yusha is also there. He says, "What an entertaining puppet show today." And it seems there will be even more things to report with this. Deus asks, "Is there a purpose behind our actions?" Yusha replies, "Why? Do you feel sorry for them?" Deus says, "No, because they oppress others to produce drugs. I just want to know if this helps with my revenge plan." Yusha casually answers, "Of course it does. We are doing this to make a place for him to return to. How can we let this place look filthy when he arrives?" Deus understands. All right. And the two of them leave the place. Everything is going according to his wishes. We, the Blue Moon, will become his sword. The city is also seen in a state of utter ruin, guys. And the scene shifts. 2 years have passed since I became pen pals with Yusha. And then Evan is seen exhausted, searching everywhere for Alone. It turns out he is in the backyard. "You startle me, Evan." He reports that the fifth one has been safely delivered to the orphanage. And at that moment, all 3 remaining sins have been rescued. Alone immediately offers food to Evan. "Here, eat up." Alone thinks, searching for the location of the sins of Great was indeed a bit difficult, but with my gamer knowledge and Evan's hard work, everything has finally been resolved. He is seen tossing a few donuts to him, guys. Alone says, "You've done a tough job traveling all over the place. Now you can rest for a while." Evan asks, "Is the orphanage mission completely finished?" Alone answers, "Yes, it is." However, Evan asks, "But young master, don't you feel happy?" He replies, "I am happy." Yet, he doesn't look happy at all. He is actually trying to smile, but it is just very difficult for him to do so. Alone lies down there and thinks, "This turned out better than I thought." Everything is going smoothly with the bosses of Cydelia. They all became the 5 great sins after experiencing a dark past. Even though this is set in their past before they awakened into the great sins, the chance to save them all perfectly was still unclear. Previously, I was worried I might rescue them after they were already completely broken. Alone asks how the orphanage is doing. Evan hands him a letter. Just like usual, everything is running normally. The children who used to be like broken dolls have now become slightly more responsive. Alone says, "Oh, really? In that case, we don't need to hire additional caretakers." He thinks, "I didn't expect Yusha to manage everything so well like this." Perhaps this is because her character setting is tied to the orphanage. She doesn't like being disturbed by others. After reading this letter, you can tell that Yusha is also a good kid. Evan asks, "Is there anything special in there?" It is written that everything is going smoothly. Several children here are developing very well. You no longer need to feel worried. And as for the child who just arrived, you don't need to worry about them either. They look very cheerful, guys. Alone thinks, thank goodness. It's a relief to see all the children growing up well. All the villains are growing up normally. It seems environment really is important. Evan asks, "So when are you going to meet them?" You always say there will be a specific time for that. And he answers regarding that matter. He thinks, "In truth, I have no intention of meeting them in person. It would indeed be nice to get closer to them, but because the process of becoming sin is so tragic and horrific, their personalities as seen in the game's flashbacks have been like that since childhood. Right now, I have saved them before they awaken, so things should turn out better. Even so, I still feel afraid." He answers, "Maybe in another 5 years. From now on in this terrifying fantasy world, what I need are some survival skills. Fortunately, magic requires talent, and I happen to have it." Evan says, "But young master, have you ever heard of the Blue Moon?" He replies, "I've never heard of them." So, they're a group that has become quite famous lately for hunting down criminal organizations, like cleaning up trash. Sounds like a good deed. That wasn't part of the setting I knew, so they will probably disappear soon too. Evan says, "But not long ago, they even dared to assassinate a nobleman. That's why I thought you might know about it, young master." And suddenly, Alone immediately orders him, "Starting today, you will sleep next to my room." Then it is shown at night. Yusha is saying, "Shall we hear the weekly activity report of the Northern Blue Moon now?" And a young girl, the sin of pride, named Siolang, answers, "I've taken care of everything. The heads of the slave traders didn't even recognize me. I like the clothes Rini made. I gave them a chance to guess from my eye color, but still, no one knew." A woman named Rini answers, "All the corpses have been safely buried. Rini is the sin of greed." And a man named Radin says the South is finished too. The illegal laboratory performing human experiments and that annoying bunch called Avalon have been cleared without a trace. Radin is the sin of purity. Yusha says, "Good. Everything is going according to his will. We exist for the glory of the Great Moon. The secret organization Blue Moon, worshippers of the Great Moon. But a problem has arisen under his will. Everything is running perfectly. What could possibly be the problem?" Deus says, "The leader of Avalon is the Count's eldest son. During the cleanup of the South, I discovered a rather dangerous document. It seems the eldest son is planning something against him." Yusha is utterly shocked to hear this. A terrifying energy emerges from her body. They all look terrified, getting goosebumps upon seeing it. And in that letter, it is written that after the Count dies peacefully, eliminate him with poison. Yusha is furious at him. "This truly makes me incredibly angry." And 2 years passed. Alon's father passed away. The official cause of death was a heart attack. But in reality, it was substance abuse of illegal drugs that led to his death. And people thought this was the work of the Blue Moon, and they attacked during the night. Alon thinks, it seems they're starting to take the interference from the Blue Moon seriously. And so, his father's funeral, with no one mourning him, ends in total silence. Evan says, "Young master, what do you plan to do now? Next year, the first son will inherit the title. Why are you packing your things?" Alon tells Evan to pack up too, because the two of them will be leaving together. "We are going to the south." Evan asks, "Do you mean to Rod Mill?" "I plan to move to a small village in the southern part of the Palacio territory, which is Rod Mill." He is seen riding a horse carriage. However, up above, his brother Leo looks down at him with a smirk, and the scene shifts. It seems they have arrived at a place, and Alon is cooking an omelet. And then 3 days passed. Alon suddenly returns to the mansion. It turns out the first son, Leo, has died. "I can't believe I'm back in this blood-reeking place." But the death flag this time feels different. Why is he already dead? The cause of death was a heart pierced by a sword. Who killed him? Alon says, "Excuse me, I want to ask someone about the cause of death." However, they're all terrified. The person answers, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make eye contact with you." They look truly frightened, guys, looking at Alon. And Alon thinks, what is wrong with all of them? Evan suddenly arrives and approaches him. Alon asks, "Evan, do you know the situation yet?" He answers, "Yes, about that. They say you were the one who eliminated Leo last night, young master." Alon was completely shocked by the rumor and looked around at the crowded room, noticing that everyone was trembling with fear just from hearing the gossip. The story flashes back to a few days prior, right before Alon departed for Rod Mill. At that time, Evan had questioned his decision, saying, "If you were planning to leave, wouldn't a larger city be a much better option for you, young master?" Alon thought to himself that a big city was out of the question. Rod Mill was the ultimate destination for his retirement plan. Having successfully rescued the 5 great sins from their tragic backstories, he had already averted the future destruction of the world. Since Rod Mill had absolutely zero connection to the original plot of the game and featured a peaceful palatial villa, it was the perfect sanctuary to live out a sweet, lazy, noble life. Alon simply replied, "There is a reason for everything." Evan sighed, "I won't be fooled by that anymore. You always say things like that whenever you are feeling annoyed or lazy." Alon just told him to drop the subject and forget about it. As their carriage departed, Leo had watched them leave from a balcony, thinking to himself, should I just eliminate him now? Either way, whether he stays or leaves makes no difference to me. I was originally planning to get rid of him using poison right after our father's death. But since he is voluntarily isolating himself at the border, there's no immediate reason to kill him. Besides, things within Avalon haven't been going well lately, and he's just a minor distraction. Leo then turned to his subordinate, Alman, and ordered him to keep a close eye on the carriage. Alman asked, "Do you want me to eliminate him, master?" Leo looked surprised. "What did you say?" He thought it was bizarre that Alman, who had always followed orders without a single complaint, would suddenly ask such an unprompted question. Leo snapped, "You only need to do exactly what I command." Suddenly, Alman drove a blade straight into Leo. "How dare you betray me?" Leo gasped. Alman replied coldly, "It just so happens that I've been thoroughly enjoying this little game of war. It's been quite fun up until now." In reality, Alman was actually Haydn, a member of the Blue Moon secret organization. They lived by the core beliefs taught by the Red Moon, operating as the executioner's sword for the Blue Moon. They moved strictly as an extension of their master's will, but if anyone ever dared to threaten the Great Moon, they were permitted to act on their own initiative. Haydn smirked down at the bleeding Leo. "That's why I was waiting for you to say those exact words. To think it took 2 whole years of waiting. Because you just uttered that threat, Avalon will be erased from this continent forever. It's a shame. The Great Moon actually granted you a chance to live." With that, Haydn vanished into the night, leaving the dying heir behind. The scene shifts back to the peaceful village of Rodmill. Alone woke up in his bed, stretching and thinking that a fresh omelet was the absolute embodiment of paradise. It was a flawless, quiet day where he could wake up whenever he wanted and eat to his heart's content. He felt that he was finally experiencing the true luxury of being a nobleman, and even idly considered starting a gourmet toast business. Suddenly, Evan burst in, looking grim. "Young master, an urgent letter has just arrived." Alone's face fell as he read the contents. Due to the sudden death of Leo Palacio, Alone was required to return to the capital immediately to handle the family affairs. His dream retirement in Rodmill had lasted a grand total of 3 days. Back at the main mansion, Alone noticed everyone whispering and recoiling from him in sheer terror. He asked, "Evan, why is everyone reacting to me like this?" Evan looked at him with profound awe and asked, "Young master, since when did you become a mastermind who completely dismantled Avalon?" Alone froze, utterly struck by panic. He realized he had somehow been dragged right back into another insane, inescapable misunderstanding. Feeling deeply miserable, Alone pleaded, "Can you please explain this to me in simple terms? How on earth did I become a criminal mastermind?" Evan explained, "Because you are the only person who stands to benefit from this entire situation, young master. Leo was assassinated almost immediately after we left the mansion. Your departure provided the perfect alibi, while simultaneously making you the sole heir to the Count's title. Furthermore, because Avalon was completely wiped out in the aftermath, there is no one left alive to contest Leo's death or cause trouble for you. Everyone believes you orchestrated the purge using a hidden master assassin under your direct command." Alone's mind raced, completely bewildered. He knew that under normal circumstances, no ordinary faction could annihilate a massive underworld syndicate like Avalon overnight. Then a memory clicked. "Wait, Evan, didn't you mention a group a while ago that hunts down criminal organizations?" Evan nodded. "Oh, you mean the Blue Moon?" Alone said, "Exactly. Do you think this could be their doing?" Evan shook his head. The Intelligence Guild stated that this incident is likely entirely unrelated to the Blue Moon. They noted that the Blue Moon never leaves corpses behind and always leaves a distinct signature mark. The members of Avalon, however, were ruthlessly butchered by standard swordsmanship. They described the crime scenes as a literal depiction of hell. That's why the public is convinced you possess a secret, bloodthirsty sword master as your personal guard. Alone was stunned. He rationalized that the Intelligence Guild must be right, considering the Blue Moon never even appeared in the original game. There was no way a minor, weak group destined to disappear before the main storyline could achieve something so massive. He was left completely in the dark, wondering who the real culprit could possibly be. The scene shifts to a secluded hideout where Yusha was gathered with the 5 core members of her organization. She asked, "Are there any traces left behind?" Rini answered, "None at all. They didn't leave a single shred of evidence." Deus arrived shortly after, adding his report, "I checked the remaining numbers. The remnant forces of Avalon totaled 486 men." Radin smiled fiercely. "Just as you ordered, boss. We split every single one of them cleanly in 2. Yusha nodded. "Perfect." Avalon, a massive underworld syndicate that had once tightly controlled the Asteria Kingdom from the shadows, had been reduced to literal ash in a span of just 5 days. Radin then held out a document. However, it seems our cleanup isn't entirely finished yet. I discovered letters connecting other nobles to Avalon's network. The Altea territory appears to be deeply involved. Yusha's eyes narrowed. You all know what needs to be done, right? The members nodded in unison, understanding the unwritten command to quietly execute the targets and purge the corrupt territory. Yusha then asked, lastly, is the Intelligence Guild completely secure? Rini confirmed yes. They firmly believe this incident has absolutely nothing to do with the Blue Moon. Deus chimed in. Every branch of the guild is echoing the exact same report. They have labeled the entire massacre as a bloody hellscape created by an unknown rogue swordmaster. Rini asked, should we maintain our surveillance on them? Yusha replied firmly, keep a tight watch. This matter must never reach his ears. I have stressed this repeatedly, so make sure you do not fail. Deus added, to think that Leo actually tried to target him first. Yusha cut him off coldly. This matter is not up for discussion. We are merely his sword. A sword does not think for itself or question its wielder, does it? The Blue Moon must move strictly under his shadow. Remember this. That person already knows absolutely everything. Never disappoint him. Deus looked at Yusha, observing the underlying anxiety and nervousness she displayed despite her massive power, all stemming from the sheer terror of being found out by their sponsor. Deus bowed his head, internalizing the command that everything they did was for the ultimate glory of the Great Moon. Unbeknownst to Alone, Yusha had completely misconstrued his identity, elevating his status to that of an omniscient god walking among them. The scene shifts back to Alone, who looked completely drained of life. After his father's funeral, he had been buried under an endless mountain of paperwork for a solid month. He desperately just wanted to relax and indulge in the typical lazy hobbies of high society. Even though his original character was widely despised, Leo's canonical death wasn't supposed to happen for another 6 years. Because his brother's premature demise had completely fractured the game's timeline, the entire weight of the estate had landed squarely on Alone's shoulders, forcing him to act as the official heir. As a group of terrified subordinates brought in another stack of books and documents, Alone wondered why everyone was suddenly working with such frantic efficiency. Back when his father was alive, the staff used to slack off and cut corners constantly. The subordinates sneaked terrified glances at Alone, sweating profusely. One of them thought, is he angry with the pace? I have to work even harder. I absolutely do not want to end up dead by his hand. Alone misread their fear, assuming they were just taking their duties seriously because of the grim rumors circulating about him. He silently hoped they would just manage their workloads independently, so he could get some rest. Later that evening, Evan was seen roasting meat and bread over a fire. He looked at Alone with genuine admiration. Young master, I must admit, I am profoundly shocked. To think you managed to achieve Tier 2 magic proficiency within just 2 years entirely through self-study. Your talent is truly frightening. Since when were you this capable? Normally, it takes an average mage about 4 years of rigorous training to reach Tier 2. In fact, magic is entirely locked away from ordinary people unless they are born with a specific divine blessing. Alone replied smoothly. It seems I am simply gifted. In reality, Alone was screaming inside. He had only been practicing self-defense magic out of pure, unadulterated survival anxiety. The advanced techniques required incredibly precise mana control, and while he was thrilled that he could actually wield magic in a fantasy world, a harsh reality had recently set in. His natural mana pool was abysmally small. The size of a person's mana core was predetermined at birth, much like the physical build of a professional athlete, and his core was so tiny that no amount of intense training could ever expand its capacity. He realized that if standard magic failed to ensure his safety, he would have to resort to alternative, riskier methods. Before he could finish his train of thought, Evan handed him an envelope. An invitation has arrived, young master. It is finally time. The scene transitions to a grand banquet hall, glittering with lights and filled with noble guests. Alone was already exhausted just standing there. The regular social gatherings meant for building political alliances among the nobility were currently being held in the southern region of the Asteria Kingdom. Since he was on the verge of officially inheriting the title of Count, Alone figured he needed to capitalize on the event to secure stable political relationships for his future peace. However, the moment Alone tried to approach or greet any of the nobles, they practically tripped over themselves trying to flee to the opposite side of the room. Evan whispered, "Come now, young master, don't be too upset by them." Alone thought to himself, "Upset? Not at all. I completely expected to be ignored." He assumed the cold shoulder was due to his family's tarnished reputation, as the Palacios were widely regarded as a disgraceful stain on the eastern region compared to the legendary status of their great-grandfather. Determined to break the ice using the social etiquette skills he had secretly practiced, Alone confidently approached a young noblewoman near the refreshments. Attempting to flash a gentle, charming smile, he remarked, "The aroma of this wine is truly unique, especially its distinct notes. I would love to secure a few bottles for my personal collection." Unfortunately, due to his poor facial muscle transfer, his attempted gentle smile manifested as a terrifying, psychotic sneer. The young woman turned pale, trembling violently. "I will tell my father to have them prepared and sent to your estate immediately," she stammered, before sprinting away in absolute terror. Alone stood there, utterly baffled by her reaction. Nearby, groups of nobles began aggressively gossiping, spreading rumors that a lone Palacio had just cornered a young lady and threatened her family into giving up a rare, limited edition vintage wine. Alone, completely oblivious to his terrifying expression, sadly rationalized to himself that the young lady must have just been incredibly shy. Evan walked over, checking a ledger. "Your haul of gifts has increased yet again, young master. A prize stallion from Paldean, Venian orange tea, Valanda crafted metal, and a crate of Night Tino special wine. Quite an impressive list of tributes." Alone sighed. "And here I went through the trouble of studying wine culture. It seems the Palacio name carries a lot more weight than I realized." He noticed the crowd actively parting around him, leaving a massive, empty radius. "Is it just my imagination, or am I getting further away from making actual friends? I think I'll go get some fresh air." As Alone walked out onto a secluded balcony, a striking woman with vibrant red hair watched him intently from the shadows of the ballroom. Standing on the balcony, Alone looked up at the night sky, deeply depressed. Where exactly did my plan go wrong? Suddenly, a soft voice called out from behind him. "Hello, excuse me. May I speak with you for a moment?" Alone flinched in surprise, turning around. He couldn't believe someone was actually voluntarily initiating a conversation with him. The woman stepped into the moonlight, offering an elegant bow. "I am Gloria, the third daughter of the Duke Altia family." Alone offered a polite greeting in return, but his internal gamer knowledge immediately set off alarm bells. The Altia family was explicitly detailed in the game as one of the three greatest villainous factions, the absolute worst scum of the Eastern Territories. Anyone associated with them was bound to be highly dangerous. Yet, Alone racked his brain and realized he had absolutely no recollection of this specific girl from his hundreds of playthroughs. She never appeared in the game's plot. Gloria looked him dead in the eye, her expression deadly serious. "I want to be completely straightforward with you, Lord Alone. Please, lend me your strength, because very soon I am going to be assassinated by someone. Are you ready to see how Alone handles this unexpected wild card from the Altia family? Or should we focus on what Yusha and the Blue Moon are planning next for their master?"